The Beverly Zeimet Show. Discovering you. Rewiring the brain. Rebuilding confidence. And harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zeimet.
Hello and welcome to the Beverly Zeimet Show, where being the best you has just gotten easier. My guest today is Tony DeVale. He's calling in from the UK. It's amazing. I'll tell you, I have had some of the most awesome speakers coming on the show lately from the UK area, and it's just an honor to be able to have you guys, come in and just be on the show, share your stories, your excitement, how things on the other side of the pond are functioning versus over here in the rest of the world. So, Tony, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you got into this industry.
Bev, thank you very much for the opportunity to share, and just a refresh. I'm in South Africa, Johannesburg.
Oh, South Africa.
Africa, that's where I am right now.
Ah, okay.
Darkest Africa. So I've lived here my whole life. As you can see, I'm not the youngest guy in town. I'm a 57 model, a 1957 May model, Taurian. But I've been looking back. I've been interested in unusual stuff for most of my life. And I think what stands out for me is when I was very, very young, one of the messages that kept on coming back to me is I'm going to transpose myself through physical matter, and the day I do it, I won't tell a soul.
Okay.
And obviously, people didn't like that around me, and so I ended up hiding that kind of thinking and feeling and focus. But I've always had a passion for being the best version of me. So in some of the research that I've done around souls and past life, I've got to understand that before we come here, we contract with souls on the other side to do stuff for us so we can grow. But unfortunately, it took me 60 plus years of my life to get that frame of reference. So I chose a hard dad, a very, very hard dad. Negative, berating, you'll never be good enough, you're stupid, you're useless. And that was my upbringing. I have 2 brothers, but my upbringing was a very, very tough push down, hit the whole time. And at the time, it wasn't fun. It's the same as when you hit your thumb. It's sore and it goes numb. So
Right.
you need to do work to repair the numbness and to prevent the soreness from happening again. But also there's a wisdom and there's a learning. And I think we either become like our parents. So if you've got alcoholic parents, you either become like an alcoholic, or you go the other way and you're smart and sharp and behave and intelligent. And I think that was the gift I got, is my dad pushed down so hard, I fought back to prove that I was good enough, that I've spent my life finding the most powerful tools possible to be the very best version of me. And in that journey that I had to do the work and repair and upgrades and improvements on me, I then discovered amazing tools. And, I think men, we have a very tough time in the world, because I remember the saying, it's cowboys don't cry, not even in front of their horses.
Oh my gosh. That is so real, Tony. We heard, we've got that over here as well. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to your story. And I'm thinking, he's talking about me, right? Because there's so many similarities in our stories. It's really amazing. And I think you really tapped on something there when you said, how we come into this world and the parents that we have and why we have them, the lessons that we learn, and that drive, because your father was so hard on you that you were proving him to be different. And I did the same thing. I was like the black sheep of the family, and there is 11 of us. So
Wow.
yeah, and I was second oldest, and it was like I was my father's son. And so where my dad went, I went. And then when my brother came along, and then another brother came along, I was always having to prove myself. always having to prove myself, and it wasn't until I was probably in my 30s when I really got the message is I don't have to prove anything to anybody but myself, right? But it gives you that drive, like you said, to go out there and to make the shift, and like the buck stops here. And I'll let you go on with your story because it's a beautiful story. But when things started shifting, when I started really focusing on myself, finding my identity and my purpose, that the more work that I did on myself, the impact and the shift that it had on the genetic DNA with my siblings and even with my parents and grandparents was phenomenal. So I don't know if you recognize some of that when you were working with yourself. So go ahead, tell us the rest of the story.
So I got beaten for crying. I was told, if you want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about.
Oh my gosh!
So
I've heard that too.
like this really well controlled mask is the best description of the process. And so in my attempt to be the very best version of me, a large part of it was out of fear and anger. So it was, at the time, I didn't know any better.
Right.
It was the best for me because it gave me the energy to push and go, so it wasn't the ideal, but it did the job. It absolutely did the job. And so I knew that I had to make changes and shifts because I didn't like how I felt. And I had a lot of mental, emotional, static. Look, I wasn't broken, but I got bruised quite a bit. Life can be tough. So I started doing workshops and self-development and getting books and self-hypnosis right from a very early age when I was in the Navy. And I was a shy, quiet guy. And in the middle of my Navy years, something happened. And a part of me shifted inside that I am good enough, like with you. I am good enough. I am worthy. I am valuable. And I started to thrive and flourish. And now I needed information. And I hated reading at school, but now I started to read stuff. And so I read lots of, you can see my shelves. This is 10% of my
I know, it looks like mine, And, I did the same thing when I was in school. Reading for me was like nothing. You had English literature, and I could not get into those books. There was no interest whatsoever, and we had to do essays about the books. So I knew the ones that were avid readers. So I would go and I would talk to them. It's like, oh, what'd you like about the book? And I got really good at asking questions as a kid, right? And got the whole gist of the book, and then I wrote my essay, because for me, reading was not. And when I started on my journey in the 70s, there really wasn't a lot of self-help books or anything back then. But after I moved to Denver, and then it was kind of the beginning of that era, and started finding self-help books and started to make sense out of what it is that I did as a child, and it just kind of changes your life, because now it's like, oh, I guess I'm not as weird as everybody said I was, right? Yeah.
I think the challenge that I was facing, and I think many people, men specifically, face, is we become so locked into our head space because that's our power and control. And so my power was, do you know how much I've read? And that became my mask and my protection. But what I discovered is I was a prisoner of my own mind.
Yes.
And I found a workshop which was based on some transformational work with a guy, and I was like the cowboy, like cowboys don't cry. I'm cool, I'm okay. And it was a weekend workshop, and I did the Friday night, Mr. Me, Mr. Cowboy, Mr. Cool, I don't need this, I'm perfect. By Saturday afternoon, I was crying, weeping. By Sunday, I was flying. And I realized, unless you get into the emotional component of your system beyond this head ego, you will be a prisoner forever. And we joke that the longest journey a man will take is from here to here.
That is so true. That is so true. And what you said about the angers, anger doesn't hurt anyone other than the person that carries it around. And I noticed on my journey, the very beginning of my journey, where my anger and the hate and the animosities that I had, when I started releasing it and came to the realization, to be free was to release, but it wasn't the anger that I had towards my father. It was an action that he took and the reaction that I absorbed that put that anger in there. And once I recognized that and got rid of that anger, that was one of the biggest aha moments of my life, was getting rid of that anger. And when we look at what we do and where we've come from, it's kind of like that's what we do for our passion, right? And so working with emotional healing and finding that identity, because that emotional cover kind of blocks the truth of who we are. And that's why I put myself in that position of becoming that self-discovery archaeologist, was to eliminate that old emotional baggage that no longer serves the purpose, right?
I think for me, my perspective on anger is different, because I have hurt because I was hurting. And so there's the saying that hurt people hurt people.
Oh gosh,
so
I just got chills. That is so true. Oh.
So people that are angry are spiky, they're sharp, they're unreasonable, they're unfriendly.
Yeah.
They do hurt people. I can tell you, my father was angry and that anger came on me. And I've been in situations where I've watched other angry parents behave on how they behave on their kids. So I don't, yes, anger hurts you, but it's toxic on the outside to others around.
Oh gosh, yes it is. Yes it is.
It blocks love. It completely blocks love. You cannot be in love and loving when you have anger coursing through your veins.
So true.
And then the twin of anger is sadness. And those two dance together. And so the problem is, if you know any of David Hawkins' work, Power versus Force.
Yes, I love his stuff. Yes.
The lowest one is shame. And that's where the problem with men comes in, is we've been shamed. We've been shamed to have emotions. We've been shamed to have feelings. We've been shamed because we cry. We've been shamed because you're weak. And so, we say, you should be ashamed of yourself. Or I'm ashamed of you.
Yes.
And so we embed this toxic identity of I'm dysfunctional, I'm not good enough, I'm not okay. And that's right at the core of our identity, that little inner child part of the process, which, unless you do the emotional work, the head stuff, you can read all the books in the world, like I have.
Right.
But unless you get into here with whether NLP or hypnotherapy or releasing technology or emo freedom or emotionetics, you will be a prisoner. I remember the first day I kind of really let go publicly. I'd never cried in public. Even at my mother's funeral, I was so scared of crying. And I saw my father holding my mother's hand for the first time in my life. And I was this stoic, solid young man, making sure I'm safe and okay. And I got accused of being cold and heartless because I wasn't crying. You get locked in this, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't kind of context from people that supposedly love you. So you then lose a sense of like, so who am I? What am I? What do I do to be okay?
Right.
And that, I think, was for me the adventure and the journey through the darkness to unhook the anger, unhook the baggage, learn to let go. And it's only literally recently in the last, probably year or two, so I'm over 60. Because my last words to my father before he died, literally the day before he died, were not nice words. My opening words at his funeral started with the F word. He was and there wasn't the dryer in the house. So it's taken me probably 30-something years, as much as I'm in the work, to get to understand that it was a gift. And to be able to feel that it was a gift. Because you can cognitively understand, yes, it's okay, I forgive you. But if you can't get to it here, this shift from here to here, you then are always locked away. And I see it often in men in the workshops, because I was part of Mankind Project, who did healing work for men. And so for me, that's been my journey, is to find a way to bring out the best version of me, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And when I did my Mankind workshops, part of the processing you do is you go across the river and into the mountains and you get your soul's goal. Now, why are you on the planet? And so here's mine. It was a men's workshop, so it starts off as a man amongst men. I am on the planet to co-create a world of more integrity, freedom, love, abundance, meaning, peace, and joy. That's what I think we're missing in the world. And everybody's going for the means goals, the money goals. But you don't actually want the money. You want the feeling. You want you want to feel respected, valued, appreciated, significant, certainty. But and that's why this Corona thing is a gift for us. There's all these Corona moaners complaining. I think it's a gift to come off the gas, slow down, get into the pits, and reassess life. Am I happy where I'm going? Am I happy how I'm going? Am I happy who I'm being? And then make a new decision and move forward. And it's the only time we do that is when we have the carpet pulled out from underneath us. Otherwise, we're busy providing and protecting and defending and being the responsible one.
Right.
And I think the world's tough for everybody now, not just men. For men and for women, it's very tough.
Well, and put the children in there. I mean, it's really a rough time in their lives, too. And we have grown up, generations here where it's been kids taking care of kids because, everybody's in a daycare, and so that family unit has kind of been shattered a little bit. But I really like what you were saying because, Tony, I have to say kudos off to you. You're the first gentleman that has come on my show and actually, I'm serious, and it actually came from his heart in a manner so different that I haven't experienced in a very long time. And to be able to speak the words in the passion that you are and being true and honest, and that's what this show is all about. That's what life is all about, is bringing yourself into that best you that you can be, but doing it by honoring yourself and honoring others and being able to get into that and an expression of it. The words that you've chosen are very impactful and very encouraging. And like I said, you just give me the chills all over because it so reminds me of my life. I mean, it's like, did he follow me around or something, Yeah. And, to be able to put it in that perspective. Because in the situation that I was in, I grew up as a tomboy. Because I always wanted to outshine, outride, outfight, outshoot, whatever, my brothers, right? To get my dad's attention, to pay attention, right? And it didn't happen. But I had it for a couple of years until, they got bigger because there was just barely like a year and a half between us, And so it was short-lived, but it was there. And again, that realization, like you said, and coming into, and when you said you went on your little journey, it's kind of like a vision quest type of journey, it sounded like, to really find that inner essence of who you were and to come out with that and say, wow, these are the things that I'm in, to have more integrity, more love, and, all the things that you mentioned. My whole body was just like tingling from top to bottom because that's what we need in the world, and especially now, because we're in extremes. And again, the abuse, you talked about that anger coming out, and being inflicted, because when you're angry in here, it does come out. And the abuser, the abused is the abuser, as you put it. It is so true, and we're seeing extremes of that right now, and it's what can happen? What can we do to shift that? And working with the children. So you said you were in your 60s right now, right? Mm-hmm. And when you look at that, and then you look at the children who are being impacted in their lives right now and have been, and you can feel it, you can recognize it in your words and in your guidance. What can you say to parents? What can you say to children that can help to change their lives before they have to reach that point of 60? What can they do now, today, to start that journey?
I think in our days it was Dr. Spock was the guidance on how to bring up children, and so spanking and hitting was okay. And I think today's choice of where there's no spanking, you can't strike a child, they can take you to court. I think we've gone the other way.
Too far.
And yeah, we've gone. The kids today, the suicide levels are so high and accelerating in the 10 to 15-year-olds. They don't even know what life is like.
Right.
So school is still old-style schooling, reading, writing, arithmetic. We're not in the dark ages. We're in an era where technology is pervasive, and around them they are seeing their peers pretend to have everything when it's not necessarily the truth. And so we are hardwiring inadequacy, not good enough. How do I compete? Do I fit in? Am I missing out on this process? And so we are building children in the attempt to be nice parents. We are building flakes, snowflakes. The kids cannot take the punch. They don't have resilience. They don't have the mindset. They are not innovative, creative, and resourceful. As a kid, I had 3 jobs. I used to mow the lawn and the lawns around the places, 4 jobs. I used to go and buy flowers at the nursery and sell them door to door. On a Saturday morning, I used to work at Pick and Pay and pack the bags for the ladies and carry their bags to the car so I could earn money. And so right from that age, as a youngster, I did stuff to generate value. I had to pay when I was even older, when I was starting to earn, I paid to stay at home. So we used to get pocket money, but it wasn't much.
Right.
So I've had to, everything I've got is been through my efforts and focus. The kids today are given everything. I have a new friend I'm talking to. Her daughter's 26, living at home. Now the one horse is sick and the vet wants 30,000 rand, so she's funding her daughter. I have another friend her son used to work for her for 15 years, but not for a fair fee. If you can employ a bookkeeper for 10,000 rand, but you're paying your child 35,000 rand, there's something wrong in that situation. So
right.
We are building fragile souls. The new kids, the crystal kids, are conscious. They're much more spiritually aware. They're much more connected to source. But we're not giving them, the story about the butterfly, where the guy comes across this pupa. This butterfly is busy struggling to try and get out of the pupa. And with love and kindness, he says, I'll help you. And he opens the pupa. But the problem is now the butterfly is lying there because it hasn't had to have the fight. And it's during that duress and the fight that the butterfly fills its wings with the fluid that helps its wings open. But because you've made it easy and you've taken away that growth, you've created a cripple. And that's what the parents are doing with their kids. They're giving them stuff. But also the challenge is 2 parents are working, they're at work, the kid wants some attention, here's 500 rand, go and play. Or go into the computer thing. And so we're not building love, connection, good role models of attention. Like you said, kids, we want significance.
Right.
You either get significance by being good or by being bad.
And it's a lot easier to get more attention when you're bad than when you're good, right? Yeah.
And so we're not giving the children good role models. I love the kids. I don't have children. I've never been married. Humanity is my children. So when I have a chance to be with young children, I love growing them. I love feeding their minds with ideas and concepts and principles. I have a friend, we go fishing, and we do deep sea fishing, and it's his daughter's one son. And so when we get on the boat, I always give him a new little principle. And the one thing is I taught him, the best fight is no fight. And whenever he sees me, he says, what's the best fight? And so their brains are so malleable. We need to build in good, positive, strong principles, morals,
right,
ethics.
Exactly.
In the old days, if I shook your hand, a gentleman's shake was done. It was solid, rock solid. Today, whether you shake hands, make a promise, we watch Survivor where they betray each other. And so we are holding up the role models of bad behavior as good. And I think
That's so true. That is so true.
we don't have anywhere where people can really look at and say, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think this, it just, people are too busy.
You know, and right there, I think you just hit the nail on the head. People are too busy, and people are busy being busy. But again, when you look at these generations, because we had where, you know, both parties in the family had to work, right? And so you start out with the latchkey kids, and then you know, they grew up. Now they had to work, and they had kids. Well, all these daycares are opening up now, right? And who's working in the daycares? The latchkey kids. And now you have generations of kids raising kids because they don't have that foundation. So we've got probably at least now coming up 3 generations of where children have been taking care of children. And here we are all of a sudden slam dunked into the world has stopped. Everything has stopped. You know, and I don't know how many times I've heard this, you know, oh, my kids are just driving me crazy. I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, my gosh, I just want to wring their little necks, you know, because they're being kids, right? Sometimes our school system, I don't know what it is down there, but the school system here wanted to just put kids, you know, on this Ritalin stuff. You know, they got, oh, wow, they got ADD, they got ADHD. It's like, no, they have energy that they need to express, you know, and we're making them lethargic by doing what? You know, putting them behind these, putting them, like here we are sitting in front of a computer, right, talking with each other, but they're being stagnant. They're not outside running around, climbing rocks, climbing trees, falling out, racing down the road. They're not doing these things. They're not out there in nature. And they're being held back. And they, like you said, they do come in so much more spiritually attuned than what we were, you know. And the technology, I mean, they are wired for technology. But that doesn't stop the necessity to be able to have that freedom, to be able to connect with nature, and learn that balance and that harmony and understand what energy is all about. And, you know, to what you said, it's a give, and then it turns into a take. You know, yes, we want more for our children than we had for ourselves. But the pendulum swings. It's way over here where there was scarcity, and then it's way over here where there's an overabundance. And it's like giving everything with nothing in return, no earning, no discipline as to, you know, this doesn't just grow on trees, you know. It's understanding what it is. What is the energy all about when you are giving someone something? I mean, I'll go back to a little story as when my kids were little and growing up on a farm, you know, being the second oldest, and mom and dad were struggling at that time because we're back in the 50s, okay? And it's like, I wanted a new bike. That was one of my biggest dreams, was having a new bike, right? Well, Dad would pick up a bike from a farm sale or something, right? And it would kind of sort of work. Well, you learned how to be a mechanic and make sure the spokes were straightened out, you know, and this was unbent, and make sure that chain was greased up and that it was tight. I mean, it's crazy, but it was great lessons to learn. So when my child, you know, the kids, I had 3 of them, and they were like back to back, just a year apart. And they were at that age where it was bicycle riding time, you know, and it was like, oh, wow, I'm going to get, you know, for Santa Claus, I am going to get them each a bike, right? Now, I am living through my children. I didn't realize this until after the fact. You know what? And they could care less about having a bicycle. Didn't mean anything to them, you know, and I was all excited that they'd be just like, whoa, a brand new bike, you know, and they weren't. And I'm like, what is this? Why weren't they excited and happy about, I mean, just elated about getting this new bike? And that's when the realization came that it was my excitement and it was my feeling of having that new bike that I was fulfilling, not theirs, you know. And when when you start to recognize things like that, you start to learn how to listen better. Hear the unspoken messages. And I think a lot of our children are displaying outbursts of upsets and things because of the lack of communication, the lack of understanding. Somebody, just please listen to me. Just listen to what I'm saying. And there was so many times I wanted to say that as a child. You're not hearing what I'm saying. Because again, it was, you had your 30 seconds to cry, and that was it. Mm. But you couldn't get your feelings out. You couldn't be an expression. You couldn't talk about them because you just didn't do that. That was just the way it was. Well, then it stops where? The buck stops here. And I think you put yourself in that position too, is like, the buck stops here. How do I make a difference in my life? But how does my life change impact others? And to be able to share it, and that was one of the main reasons why I began this show as well. And put that theme, being that best you that you can be, is to begin to recognize the greatness that we have and where you come from. Like you said, the distance between here and here is the longest journey you'll ever take. And sometimes it can be very challenging, it can be heartbreaking, but once you move through that emotional baggage, it is so beyond worth it. Would you find that to be, true on your end as well?
I think for me, just to go back to the kids, the problem that we have with the ADHD stuff is twofold. One is we're giving them ugly food, sugar and stuff that it energizes and activates and creates the mental challenges and stuff. So we're not putting the right fuel in their system. But number two is the new mindset of the children. It's a new DNA structure of intelligence that has come through. And so we're feeding them 1 teaspoon at a time because that's how we coped. They can drink from a fire hydrant. So the reason they're not paying attention in class is they're bored.
That's true.
Here's a spoon and I'll come back in half an hour. The guy's saying, give me a fire hydrant. I want to be able to do something. And so the problem is we give them Ritalin and chemicals and tablets to quell and slow them down, rather than solving the real issue and addressing the real problem. We should give the teachers the Ritalin to speed them up so they can focus with it.
Now that's a good thought. That's a great thought.
Speed the teacher up. And so we also have to get away from reading, writing, and arithmetic. Yes, for me, school is gym for your brain.
Yes.
Because what we've learned at school is out of date, most of it, other than the fundamentals of maths and science and the core issues. But even some of the science is out of date. So school isn't about what to learn. It should be how to learn.
Yes.
And so it should be content agnostic. But it's gym to build this brain so that when you get into the real full life world, you can think, you can do maths, you have logic, you can deduct, you can negotiate, you can talk, you've got some confidence, you've got courage. And so the world's much more competitive today. The world is now flat. With technology, when I started speaking, my competition was just in my little my area.
Right.
And as technologies come, my competition is the world.
Exactly.
And I've got hundreds of thousands of coaches and speakers that I compete with. So, and the information changes so frequently. You have to unlearn and relearn and unlearn and relearn. The problem is we are protecting the children, like you said, from being outside. You need to be outside on the ground, earthing, discharging the static. Because if your body is not healthy, the rest of the machine struggles. So you can have this beautiful Ferrari, but if you've got flat tires, bad oil, and no fuel, I don't care how good the Ferrari is. So health, number one, gut health, mental health, emotional health are vital components. We have to teach kids, I'm sure you know about Carol Dweck's work on fixed mindsets and growth mindsets.
Right.
These little children are soft, they're like clay in your hands. As a parent, learn how to program, learn how to rewire, learn how to give positive appreciation and approbation for behaviors that are valuable, not you, Johnny, you're a clever guy.
Right.
Donnie, I liked the effort you put in. I liked your creativity. I liked the determination. I liked your resilience. Because if you say, well done, Tony, you're a clever guy, the moment I'm not clever, now I lose my significance.
Right.
And now I'll lie, steal, crook, or cheat to regain that significance. And so my life I live in a fear-based being not good enough versus a growth-optimized based being, how do I grow? How do I improve? And it's not a hard thing for parents to do. But the reality is you can slap somebody once and it's a memory forever. They'll be scared of you forever. And that gets generalized by the brain. But parents, understand, you have a special soul that you've contracted with God, Spirit, Source, Universe, whatever label you want to give this higher multidimensional energy. You've contracted to be a foundation for them. Be an intelligent, conscious, kind, loving, caring foundation. And I don't agree necessarily that you don't get a hiding, but if you do ugly stuff, you don't punch them in the face. We had wooden spoons and straps, which maybe the strap was a little bit much, but a wooden spoon on the bum, or at school we got cuts, you got 6 of the best for being naughty. You knew there was a consequence of bad behavior.
Right.
And so there has to be some kind of guiding line. Here's the line. Just look at drugs. Look how much drug availability, and the kids are just involved in it. Now with marijuana, that's a whole bigger picture on politically how the government's going to control people.
Right.
But that also opens you up energetically. I had a young guy from my Mankind Project, one of my men from there, because I do the meridian tapping and hypnotherapy stuff.
Right.
He said, will you help my son stop smoking? And so he sent his son along, and he came with his girlfriend. So she's 16, he's 17. And my little intuition, I'm listening to the conversation before we start. And she's been sick for 18 months, and nobody knows why. And so I did some research and some checking and dowsing and asking questions. And we discovered they'd had dacha and been playing glassy, and she'd got energetically infected with some kind of energy that was not a nice, positive energy.
Right.
So we cleared her out, and then his eyes were like this. And he said, well, how does it happen? I said, well, invitation, accident, alcohol, drugs, unconsciousness. He says, because I was having dacha the other day, and I was angry, and I invited the devil in. Chunks. And so people don't understand, because you can't see stuff doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
So
There's a
true.
lot of stuff
That's so
around us.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
And so being conscious, being aware, being cognizant of your inner voice, and that for me was the big shift. The very first wall that you have to confront is the inner voices. If you've got multiples of them, we've got some process to do for you for multiplicity.
That's right. That's right.
But we all have this inner voice, even the one that says, no, me, I don't have that voice. But that inner voice, if you heard my one, I used to play hockey. I played serious hockey for school, for Defence Force, for Navy, for South Africa. So I was a competitive animal. But as much as I was so competitive, if I did something wrong, my inner voice would be ugly. You useless waste of white skin, you stupid, you piglet, you just, so my internal self-talk was so negative, basically from my father's side. And until I was able to become conscious of it, and then make an internal shift and a promise, I love and I care for myself enough, and I'm worthy and valuable enough, I will only allow positive inside. And occasionally you get this impinging comment that'll come, but my contract with my soul and my brain is we only allow positive in this house. We don't allow people to bring their dirt bins and throw it on the carpet and throw it on the couches. It's a conscious, intentional rewiring process. We only allow kindness, care, love, positive consideration. Because, you catch more bees with honey than with vinegar.
Yes, I've heard that statement.
Is the same thing.
Yes.
And that's why when I was wondering, when I was 24, I was blessed. I met a woman called Wendy Evans, and she was speaking in front of a group, and she had written a book, How to Get Business in 90 Days and Keep It Forever. And we connected, we bonded really nicely. She must have been about 38, 40, and I was my young 24, and I was all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about this woman standing from Australia. And we became friends, and she said to me, Tony, you've got everything you need. You've got the knowledge, the brains, research, write the book, do the workshop, go to America, they'll love your voice. And I said, yes, I've got the recipe. Thank you. Do you know, it took me 35 years to take action.
Yeah, but you did. You did then, right? You don't.
It's in final edit, but it took 35 years to push past all the gonna be, wanna be, should be, like to do, to eventually like be responsible. Here's where the buck stops. If it is to be, it's up to me.
Right.
But there was a gift in that as well, because when you're 16, you don't have much experience in wrestling tigers or sharks or anacondas that you can't write about it having wrestled yourself. And so my book is based on my learning and burning and hands-on experience, and not just a theoretical journey of how to be the best version of you.
What is the name of your book, Tony?
My book is called Swift Success.
Okay.
And the Swift is a model because everyone wants to be successful in some way or form. But the problem is their success they're looking for is based on having stuff. What
Right.
we call means goals. They want the money, the car, the boat, the plane, the train, the house, the jewelry, the boyfriend, girlfriend. They want the stuff. But it's not the stuff we want. We want the feeling we'll get from having this stuff. And so when I was 21, I used to sell Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Porsches and Rolls Royces and De Tomaso Panteras. So I was driving the Lani cars in those days. And I promised myself I'd buy myself a convertible Mercedes. And I saved up, and one day I went and bought it. And this was the most important day of my life. And I drove it home, and for the next probably 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, here I was driving around, any opportunity to go and drive and be at the robots and looking around to see who's looking at me.
Right.
But within probably 6 or 10 weeks, it had worn off. It was just another car, another piece of metal that I had to service and maintain and insure. Because I didn't want the thing. I wanted the feeling of being worthy and valuable and significant and respect, or whatever those things that we have as holes in our heart. So we could save a lot of money and a lot of heartache just to jump from where you are to the end goals. Do you want to feel love? Start with loving yourself. I love Neil Donald Walsh's work. If you want something, become the source of it. If you want happiness, become the source. If you want peace, become the source. If you want joy, become the source. Whatever you want, start with you becoming the source.
Right.
Stop living in the past, carrying your baggage with you and living through your baggage. Focus forward into the future. Dream, imagine, visualize, become the very best version of you that brings that, and you will have it in spades. So, for me, the wake up, people are doing the best they can with what they have, but it's often not good enough. And people think that's quite harsh, and I accept that. But knowledge isn't, just look at the internet. Just on this little phone here, you've got access to more information than humanity's had in the rest of 200,000 years we've been on the planet. So information doesn't make us happy, doesn't make us better. It's the ability to become conscious and aware and know that we are all part of something. I'm not the solo me. It's a we. And it's being conscious of that I have impact, I have potential, I have possibility, and it can't be a win-lose where I win and you lose. It can't. In South Africa right now, we have probably 55 million people. Of that, probably 4.5 million are white people. We currently, under Corona, are about to hit, we've probably passed 50% unemployment. We're probably at 70% youth unemployment. And a large part of that is our black people. And it's not that they're bad. Yes, there were political things that weren't right in the past, which I can't change. But if we are going to build a better way, it has to be together. It can't be divisive. I'm looking at the riots you guys are having in all around your place there. The division, the problem is we don't have good leadership globally. We don't have leadership with good integrity, good consciousness, good intention. And we could open up a can of worms if we go any further there.
But what you're saying, Tony, is so true. But it starts here. It starts with the self, right? And to be able to have that inner integrity and that knowing. And we are all one. We're one with the universe. The universe is one with us, and maybe you don't think the impact of what you do is going to change someone else's life, on the other side of the planet. But it does, because we are all united. Granted, the changes and things that you do are going to impact your immediate bloodline. But we're all made out of the same substance. And as that ripple effect goes, it reaches everyone. You're no different than I am. You're in a male body, I'm in a female body. Doesn't matter what color, what sex, what race, what age. It doesn't matter. It matters that we are all walking around in some kind of human element, right? That's our vehicle to experience what is on the planet. But it's to experience it together, and to have that peace. But peace out here is only an expression of the peace you have inward. And now with this time where we have the same amount of time that was spent being busy is now being spent, with yourself. Utilize that time, because it may be the only chance you get to really internalize and take a look at who you are, why you are, what you are, where you are. And a lot of times it's hard to discover that identity, that true identity of who you are. But when you can start removing the pieces of what you are not, so look at, go within here and say, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not going to be that anymore. That doesn't define who I am. You start moving that stuff out of the way, and that's where this self-discovery archaeologist comes from, right? He started uncovering, sometimes you need a stick of dynamite to blow up a few things, and then you start, fine-tuning where you're dusting things off, and chiseling a little here and there. But that's what is defining you. By getting rid of the old baggage that no longer serves purpose, that was built within your database of information, that is no longer truth, because you've learned more. Like you said, you've got the information in this little machine is mind-boggling. Right? It's mind-boggling. So there's no excuse to not find information. But again, it's filtering through everything too, to find out what's my truth and what's my falseness. But to recognize some of that false truth that is stored in that subconscious, in that cell memory, that's replaying on autopilot, that needs to be rewired. And that's that emotional baggage. It's like you mentioned, the feeling. And that is the fuel. The feeling is the fuel to the emotion. And when you can disconnect from that feeling that's taking you in a spiral downhill, now you can replace that agony, that shame, that guilt, all of those things that are on that lower vibration with the things that are going to be uplifting, that are going to be contained in the new database of information, to where now you're living in love and happiness and freedom and feel good and excitement. It takes a lot less energy to be in that avenue of joy than it does to be in the avenue of guilt or anger or grief or anything like that. So, but it's recognizing it. It's recognizing it and then making the decision, because it's a personal decision. You have the choice to make the change or to not make the change. This is that duality world. Change is going to happen with or without you. The question is, are you going with it? Or are you going to let it pass you by? Because if you keep looking back here, you keep living from what's back here, that is going to be out there in front of you. So now is the time to stop it. If you don't take and stand your ground now, face what was your truth and say, okay, I got it. That was my truth. That's what's in there. Well, that's not truth anymore. Now it's time to just haul that stuff out. What is my new database of information? What is my new belief, my new truth, so that I can get on with my life, get on with my purpose? And you begin rewiring that brain, which sends out the neural pathways that are going to move through the cell and get the toxicity out of there. That's what gets you on the path to being that best you that you can be every moment of your life. You know, when I'm laying there in the morning in my meditation and I'm going through what my day is going to look like, it's like all built around what am I going to do today that's going to set me aside from yesterday to be that better me. And now that I'm doing this show, right, it's like, whoa, I got a real good thing every day because, whoa, I get to talk to this new person that I've never met, know nothing about, and discover another piece of myself because we are all one. And that helps to make me a better me. And Tony, what you've expressed here today has touched my heart in a manner that hasn't been touched in a very long time.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for that. And that's that happy, joyful feeling. And it's like, wow, this is something, that feeling is what you can take with you. Because we are both masculine and feminine, right? We're masculine and feminine. The male energy is where all the strength is, and the female energy is where the power is. But when you can balance that and bring that into harmony, that's where the peace becomes. That's where the truth and the courage and the confidence and the love and the happiness, and that's where universal connection needs to take place. And for sharing with the audience today your story and the words of wisdom that you expressed will always be deep in my heart. And I can't thank you enough for that. So
I think,
go ahead.
if I may share one thing that would be most valuable for the people that are going to be listening here. In my revolutionary workplace team building and leadership development, I play a few games, and one of them is I ask the people, so who's been angry in the last few months? And there's always people in the room, it's me. And then the next thing, so if you've been angry, who made you? Who or what made you angry? Write that down. And you always get the taxis, my boss, my wife, and so they write all these external things.
Sure.
Down. And then, and normally this is kind of in the first part of the morning, so it's they still don't know me that well, but I push the line and I say, well, if I really knew you, would you allow me to be 100% honest and authentic with you and tell you the truth? And they're like, yes, yes, yes. I say, well, here's the truth. Look what you wrote down on your piece of paper. You are lying. You are being deceptive, manipulative, and you are lying. And it's like this big shock. I said, no, that person didn't make you angry. Because if they made you angry, that means they're in charge of you. They're 100% in charge and control of you. But is that the truth? And it's like, not really. So I said, well, then who is in charge of you? And eventually we get around, I made myself angry at their behavior.
Yes, that action-reaction thing, right?
That's a positive shift from I'm a victim and you did this to... Yes, you did stuff to me, but I have a choice on how I want to react or respond in that process. And because feeling is such an important thing, because there's a gap between what we know and what we do with what we know.
Exactly.
People know what to do. People know exactly what to do, but they don't do what they know because they don't feel like it, because their feelings are reactions and not conscious creations. And so nobody makes you angry. If I come and punch you on the ear or scratch your car or knock your drink, it's a stimulus.
Right.
There's no emotion to the stimulus. It is your interpretation and meaning and reaction that will then create the opportunity to be a robot and blame and name and shame, or stand back and laugh and say, oh my goodness me, that wasn't fun now, was it? Now please help me clean this thing. So the
Right.
moment you can take back full responsibility, and I say, we're all wizards. I was joking in the beginning when we introduced ourselves that I'm an alchemist. We're all wizards. We're either a dark wizard or a light wizard.
Mm-hmm.
And you are that by the words that you speak. I'm sure you know the story about the dark wolf and the light wolf.
Yes, I do. Yes.
And so, which one do you feed? Do you feed the dark,
That's
ugly, smelly
right.
wolf? You feed the light, kind, loving, wonderful, angelic wolf. So you are the master. You are the wizard. Take that power and play with it. And you're going to slip. Just with kindness and love, pull yourself back into the line and start to wake up. But I wrote down here something that I wanted to share. It is unlikely, unless it's a life-threatening, life-changing experience or a crash or a loss or something, that most people will wake up to the next version of themselves. If you are starting to be interested, find somebody like you or me that is an adventurer who's done this journey a few times to take you with kindness and care and consciousness and love and take you down the path. Because there are a range of things that you can do that they're not always easy. They're uncomfortable.
Right.
Growth is outside of your comfort zone. And you need, when you're on that high wire and you're balancing in the winds of life, you need somebody who can just hold your hand and say, it's okay. I've done this 20 times or 150 times. You've done it probably millions of times because this is our life. We do it every day.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's the mindset to say, and this is where men struggle again. I should know everything. I'm not broken, so I don't want to go to a therapist. For me, everybody's perfect in the place and the moment that they are, but there's opportunity to be a better version of you.
Exactly.
Version 2, 3, 4, 5. And that it's like that onion. You're peeling the onion slowly and you're moving. And that's why when I wrote my book, research shows that less than 10% of people who buy books read the entire book. And that's like, what? So it's not the availability of information. It's a process. It's actionable stuff. So I wrote 78 wisdoms that are like chain links, that it takes you one step at a time. It's 2 or 3 pages, and it's a little step. Do you have a dream? The alchemist advantage, the gift of a crash. Do you have results to drive you beyond reasons? And so we need little nibble, what I call nibble knowledge, baby steps, every day, irrevocably, in a direction with kindness and love that adds value to you and your own life and your own space and your own family, but also the world. But you don't bend an oak tree. When the kids are young and the sapling is young, you can bend it a little.
Right.
But when they're our age, you don't just suddenly come and say, hey, change your belief system here from this to this.
Yeah.
I often joke with one of my facilitators that I've trained. In the work that we do, it's very emotional. And now we're on lockdown with Corona, we can't do it. But I said to him, you need to understand, we're getting people that hate each other. We've got such racial conflict. We've got black, white, Indian, colored, Chinese, plus. We've got multiple languages. This has been my country my whole life. 1.4 million Chinese people have greater business advantage in this country than me. They are ahead of the ladder of black economic empowerment. And so you've got all of this serious tension the whole time. Everybody's trying to survive and achieve. So we get people that hate each other on Monday to hug and be best friends by Tuesday, Wednesday. But you're having to change identities because
Oh, yes.
we have these deep-seated identities of this black-white racialism. We've been programmed. You've got leaders that are dividing people. And so you're either going to be a follower of the masses, which is not an ideal, or you're going to wake up and start the adventure. And you can either dabble around for the whole of your life, like I did for a lot of my life, trying to find my own way in the dark, or you can find somebody who's got a torch. They've done this before. They've got the confidence.
Right.
They've got the competence. They've got the love and the care and compassion. And they'll take you slowly through the dragon, through the storm, over the rocks, over the mountains, and they'll get you to the other side safely and quickly. It might cost you time, might cost you money, but I promise you it is the best investment you will make in a million lives, is to get that full version of you where there's a balance between your head, your heart, and your soul. Because we learn lots. And then our heart allows us to kind of use some of that most of the time. But once you can get into the bigger picture, that I'm part of this bigger family, I'm part of the fabric of consciousness. And that's what I'm about, is just raising humanity's consciousness with love every day in everything that I do. So the problem that I see as part of our corona thing is we still got half the team are what I call greeders. They're businesses that are just there for the money. Right. Cold, hot, raw, make me money. I don't care if it kills my staff, they get heart attacks or whatever. And then we've got these conscious leaders that are waking up to more humanity. It's people, planet, and profit, not just profit, profit, profit. But if you're in a jungle, or you're in a what's that joke? If you're in a lake full up to your armpits in crocodiles, it's very hard to focus on the job at hand.
Yes, that's so true. That is so true.
And that's why for me it's so much available. You can do a search on Google right now and find 20 million pages on self-development and self-mastery. Which one do you do? Which one's the right one? Which is the best one? Which one will take me to the next level?
The one that you start is the best one, right? And that I think is a lot of people's problem, right? They don't know where to start. Doesn't matter where you start, it matters that you start. You know, is one better than another? Not necessarily. It's getting to that outcome. But you got to start. Knowledge without implementation is definitely worthless. You know, you had mentioned something about being the victim, and one of my guests shared with me here, probably a month or so ago, and I told her I was going to steal this and I'm going to use it. It's not about being the victim anymore. It's about being the victor. Right? So if you can go from victim to victor, now you're on that path of self-responsibility, as you put it, right? Because now you are in charge of that. That taxi driver or that person at the grocery store or the person that cut you off, they're not in charge of you. You're in charge of you, right? And so become that victor. Oh, gosh, we could just keep on going and going and going, Tony. We have got to get you back on for sure. For sure. I'm going to do a little shifting up here in the show. I'm going to start adding maybe 2 or 3 different speakers at a time to kind of merge some stuff together. And it's just been such a great eye-opener for me, sharing this show and sharing speakers like yourself with the world. You know, whoever is listening, comment below. Let us know what you thought about the show today. What did you like best about it? What did you like about Tony? What did you like about his story? Could you connect, anywhere along that path, that journey that he was on? Give us some feedback, because if you don't comment, we don't know, right? We don't know. And it's knowing and understanding and also getting into that inner part of you. Take that journey from here to here, right? And have fun with it. Have fun with it.
That's got to be the thing. Enjoy the journey and adventure and have fun.
Yeah.
No one gets out of this game alive.
That's
Don't.
Yeah, but you know what? You might as well have a good time going, because if you don't, somebody else is going to. So you just go for the ride and make it the best ride ever. So Tony, again, thank you so much for being here. We will get you on the show again. So it's time to say la vie. Go out there, be that best you that you can be, because Tony and I are going to be the best we that we can be. Thank you all for joining the show, and we'll see you on another show.
And if you love somebody,